Welcome, future masters. I had solved this problem and it brought to my mind that it's a tremendous subject that I have not really addressed or seen addressed in other videos. So I'm addressing it now. The subject is the windmill. Now, you guys probably are familiar with the windmill, but the basic version, we're going to look at this from the basic version and just get the general drift of the windmill. In fact, I'm not going to play the move that black played. We're just going to assume at this point it's white to move, which it is not. And this is going to show you the difference between the basic windmill and what, I guess we should call the advanced windmill. Now, the basic windmill is when you have two pieces basically attacking the square next to the king. Usually it'll be G7, G2, or some other similar square, depending black or white. But in this move, the windmill would be rook takes G7 check, and then the king would be forced to move to the corner. All right? Now, the basic windmill is that you would play like rook takes F7 check. What's forced here is that, well, now the black pieces can take the bishop. Okay. They're generally not going to do that, but, queen takes bishop is one of the only defenses possible here. So, which would be good for black. Queen takes bishop, king check, king takes queen, and then rook takes F7. So black has escaped the windmill, which is going to doom you for sure, and he's only paid, a queen for a rook and a bishop. And then white will take if white takes the knight, then black will just simply skewer the queen and the king with the rook. Rook to C8, either one. Well, I'm sorry. He would play king takes F7 of the rook that checked him, so that he could play the skewer, and he'd be winning the game. So that is the basic idea of the windmill. Because the thing is, if you play rook takes G7 check, king H8, and if you played, for example, rook takes F7, and he didn't capture the bishop, but moved back to G8, the windmill allows you to go rook to G7 check, and you can repeat this sequence. Now, normally this happens where the diagonal piece, the bishop or the queen, is not attacked. And so you can just clean him out with the concept of rook takes G7 check, king in the corner. Rook takes F7 discovered check, king to G8. Rook to G7 check, king to H8. Rook takes D7 check, king to H8. King to G8. Rook to G7 check, king to H8. Rook takes, you could literally clean out an entire rank of pieces with this windmill effect. Okay, so this is the basic windmill, and you saw one of the basic defenses, if possible, is to kill the piece that's really the linchpin of the windmill, which is the bishop. Or in the other cases would be the queen, but generally speaking, that's usually a bishop and a rook. That's what tends to be the case. So, killing the bishop is, one of the ways out of it. In this case, it would be to black's advantage to do so, because he'd end up with at least two rooks versus the queen, if not two rooks and a knight. So that'd be tremendously good for black. Okay, so that's the basics of the windmill. Rook takes pawn check, king to the corner, rook moves discovered check. Now, he could also play rook to G4 check, which is crushing for white, because queen takes bishop is no good. He just plays king takes, and the rook's not lost. So that's one of the problems that black suffers from here, is that the check, king to the corner, Rook takes f7 check is not a good move. That's why I said queen takes bishop is good. The problem is white would have rook to g4 check, and I'm taking your queen whether your queen takes bishop or not. Your queen is gone. So this is the improvement move for white on the windmill. So now we're going to go look at the actual position because black played this move. Now he's really going to take that bishop. So, this is going to be one of the other things that what I call the advanced windmill. The basic windmill, you saw that just goes and you can clean horizontally an entire rank of pieces. And if you catch a guy in an early middle game with a windmill, which is rare, but it happens. I've seen, literally cleaning of the clock, as my dad would put it. It's cleaning of the clock, as he just wipes the entire thing by going check, take, go back to check, take another one, go back to check, take another one, one by one by one by one. So now I'm going to show you the advanced windmill. You're like, well, the advanced windmill, what's so advanced about that? Well, the thing you have here is like, if you move that rook, queen takes bishop, check, is devastating. I think everybody here could understand that. Yeah, that's pretty terrible. Because you'd play king to d1, and he'd come in with rook to b1, and you're pretty much smoked. Okay, because he's going to have rook to e8 check as well. So white's going to get destroyed if you move this rook. Now, this is the other thing of the windmill. The other option is that you can obviously make the discovered check. The other option you have to look at is double check. So in this case, whenever you have a windmill, you basically have just a straight discovered check with a rook capture or a double check with a rook capture. Or, whatever. Rook moves with double check. So we'd have, for example, we looked at the rook capture of rook takes f7, which would now completely lose. All right, so we're not doing that. So let's look at double check. On double check, we have rook to g8 double check. We also have rook takes h7 double check. Now, rook takes h7 could be nasty because you got this queen getting to the h file in one move and checking. The thing is, now you'd have to look at this, and you might want to look at this, pause the video, and give it a couple minutes. So if you want to pause the video, go ahead, and we'll be right back. 3, 2, 1, we're back. So here's the thing. And once I tell you, well, I've already told you, you have to look if the straightforward windmill capture doesn't work, look for the double check. So the correct double check is this. It's the sacrifice, rook to g8 check, or double check, sorry. So the only response is under double check, king has to move, and in this case, he has to capture. Now it becomes clear what white does to win the game, or it should become clear. I can't imagine you guys don't see the obvious check. And then this finishes in checkmate. After queen to g4, it's checkmate. So that's the thing. These are the fundamentals of the windmill. But if you don't know the fundamentals of the windmill, or haven't studied them, even if you do know them a little bit, now you're aware of the fundamentals of the windmill, okay? But if you haven't studied them, you'll be a little rusty and inferior at them. It's like bump and score and side rank mate. If you look at my videos, especially the recent, say the last month, I've really hammered the explanation of bump and score and the side rank mate. This one I wouldn't hammer. It just doesn't come up very often. So that's why when it came up, it occurred to me that I should make a subject of this so that you guys will have this option to go, oh, there's the windmill video, let me go back and look at it. So, you know, we have the basic windmill where you just take and capture and just, you know, like you're running rampant, stealing the money. Okay, then the other one is, if that doesn't work, it's the double check. Is a huge element of the windmill formation. So, and this is a little bit over 10 minutes, not too difficult, but I want to explain it to you scientifically and very structured so you'd understand. It's a pretty easy thing to understand. So now, if you run into these windmill problems, this was a 2375, I destroyed this like candy because I know the structure and the elements of the windmill. Now, you guys would do this now a little bit slower than I would, but it doesn't matter. You're gonna like say 2300. Okay, I got this windmill. At any level, you can see it. But when you look at the problem originally, it's like, okay, man, this rook takes pawn is super tempting, but does it win? Now you know you can figure this out in a minute or two easily that it's completely winning for white. And that's the point of this video. So, like the video, comment, tell me how this helped you. Subscribe if you're not always subscribed. I have no idea why you wouldn't be, but whatever. So it's just over 11 and a half minutes. You guys know what to do. I'll talk to you later.